Somewhere right now, a comment section is on fire. Someone's canceled. Someone's crying on live. Screens flicker, hearts race, and millions lean closer. You tell yourself you're just watching, but your pulse says otherwise. There's a strange safety in other people's chaos, a hidden warmth in witnessing storms that aren't yours. Before you scroll again, open your digital reflection journal. Write one confession, the last time you enjoyed someone else's drama. Not out of cruelty, but curiosity, because the truth is uncomfortable. We don't watch drama to feel superior. We watch it to feel alive. Long before screens and scandals, our ancestors gathered around real-life spectacle. Arguments in the marketplace, punishments in the square, victories at the arena. Chaos was entertainment long before it was content. Why? Because the brain craves contrast. Predictability keeps us safe, but unpredictability keeps us awake. When something unpredictable happens, a clash, a confession, a betrayal, the amygdala lights up like a siren. It scans for danger but also releases dopamine, the same neurotransmitter that fuels curiosity and learning. In ancient tribes, witnessing drama had purpose. It taught social rules through spectacle. Who broke the code? Who survived the fallout? Watching others stumble was rehearsal for your own survival. Fast forward to now. The predators are gone, but the neural circuitry remains. When you watch someone's relationship implode online, your brain still tags it as useful information. It's not gossip, it's ancestral intelligence disguised as entertainment. Drama teaches hierarchy. Drama rewards empathy. Drama signals, this could happen to you. Pay attention. And so, our ancient survival instinct wears the costume of curiosity. We call it content, but the brain calls it training. On a biological level, every confrontation releases a cocktail of stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, but when the conflict isn't yours, the dosage is safe. It's the emotional equivalent of a controlled burn. You feel the heat without getting scorched. This is why people binge toxic reality shows after stressful days. It's not mindless distraction, it's nervous system regulation through distance. By watching conflict out there, your own chaos in here feels smaller. Neuroscientists call this vicarious regulation. When you witness someone expressing what you repress, rage, jealousy, grief, your mirror neurons light up, and a small portion of your tension dissolves. Drama becomes therapy by proxy. We gossip not merely to judge, but to bond over shared emotional codes. Can you believe she did that? Is ancient shorthand for, are we still safe together? So while moral culture shames our fascination with drama, evolution quietly rewards it. Because every story of conflict reminds the tribe and the brain how to stay intact. And so, even when we swear we hate the noise, part of us leans closer to listen. Not to celebrate the chaos, but to feel, for a fleeting moment, safe from it. Every piece of drama begins with a spark, a confession, a rumor, a reveal. But it's not the event itself that keeps us hooked. It's the anticipation of what comes next. In neuroscience, this is called reward prediction error, the gap between what we expect and what actually happens. That gap? It's pure dopamine. When you refresh a comment thread or wait for someone's response video, you're chasing that chemical uncertainty. Your brain isn't addicted to the chaos, it's addicted to resolution. And yet, the resolution never truly arrives. Because every drama breeds new subplots, new characters, new betrayals. Like myth, modern drama loops endlessly. The villain becomes the victim, the audience becomes the mob. Your brain learns the rhythm of escalation, the sweet tension of the almost explained. The irony is profound. The same circuitry that evolved to help humans track danger in the wild now keeps us tracking digital conflict for sport. When someone posts a Notes app apology, your prefrontal cortex calls it trivial, but your limbic system sits up in anticipation. This is it, the moment the story closes. Except it doesn't. The comments reopen it, the reactions remix it, and the cycle continues. Drama is not just dopamine, it's uncertainty with subtitles. The brain hates confusion, but loves the chase. That's why we scroll even when we say we're tired. It's not pleasure we're chasing, it's pattern completion. And drama never completes. Every society builds its own theater, a stage where values are tested in public. The Greeks had tragedy, the Romans had gladiators, and we have viral threads. The need for villains is psychological. They define the boundaries of belonging. When someone becomes the main character of the day for cheating, lying, or saying the wrong thing, it's not random. It's the collective brain performing self-maintenance. By pointing at who broke the rules, we reassure ourselves that we haven't. Social psychologists call this moral distance signaling, the instinct to publicly separate ourselves from deviant behavior. It keeps the social order intact, even if the ritual is cruel. But here's the deeper twist. We don't just need villains, we need redemption arcs. The same audience that cancels someone will later celebrate their comeback, not out of hypocrisy, but hunger for narrative closure. We crave cycles of fall and forgiveness because they mirror our own inner contradictions. To watch someone else's downfall and return is to simulate our own capacity for transformation without the cost. In this way, drama becomes a mirror we both fear and need. It reflects our shadows and safe distance. Every villain we condemn is a part of ourselves we wish to control. That's why the line between empathy and entertainment blurs so easily. We don't consume stories to escape morality. We consume them to practice it. If you zoom out from the noise, drama looks less like chaos and more like catharsis. The ancient Greeks understood this. Their plays weren't distractions. They were emotional cleanses. Audiences wept, cheered, and mourned together, releasing the pressure of private fears through shared feeling. Modern drama, from talk shows to Twitter threads, still serves that function. It's not noble, but it's necessary. When we collectively fixate on a scandal, we're not just judging individuals. We're rehearsing empathy in public. We're testing our moral reflexes. We're asking, would I have done the same? Each viral controversy is a disguised moral workshop. It trains emotional calibration. How much outrage is right? How much forgiveness is allowed? Of course, the modern version is noisier, less sacred. But the impulse underneath is timeless. We use shared chaos to discharge private tension. We heal and gossip because honesty is too rare. That's why you feel lighter after ranting about someone's drama, even if you swear you don't care. You've externalized conflict that would otherwise stay buried. Collective drama is civilization's emotional drainage system, messy, loud, but necessary. And though it may look toxic, it's just humanity processing itself in public. You've noticed it, haven't you? That strange calm that settles in when the drama isn't yours. You scroll through someone else's argument online, the breakup thread, the celebrity scandal, the friend group fallout, and even while shaking your head, part of you exhales. Because this chaos belongs to someone else. That's the first secret of drama. It feels safe because it's controlled chaos. Like fire behind glass. You can stand close enough to feel its warmth without getting burned. Psychologists call this vicarious regulation. Our brains simulate another person's emotional turbulence as a low-risk rehearsal. By watching them handle tension, embarrassment, or betrayal, we unconsciously train for our own. It's empathy with a safety net. And deep down, the mind whispers, if I can understand their storm, maybe I can survive mine. That's why even quiet people binge-watch conflict-driven shows. Why millions follow reality TV meltdowns they claim to hate. Drama lets us experience danger from a distance. A primitive learning loop dressed in modern entertainment. Every era has its public square. Ours just happens to have comment sections. When a scandal breaks, notice the choreography. Outrage, humor, analysis, fatigue, and finally silence, until the next one erupts. It's not random. It's an engineered rhythm designed to keep attention cycling. Dopamine spikes with novelty. Cortisol rises with tension. Relief follows resolution. Then emptiness begs for the next hit. That's the drama dopamine loop. Conflict becomes content. Content becomes currency. And our empathy becomes engagement data. Social platforms didn't invent gossip, they industrialized it. The more outrage we express, the more connection we feel with others expressing it too. For a brief moment, collective indignation mimics belonging. It's the same primitive mechanism tribes use to enforce norms. Except now, the campfire is digital, and the shadows we throw are algorithmically amplified. When we say, I can't believe people are like this, while reading a thread, what we often mean is, I'm glad I'm not in that mess. That distinction gives us the illusion of moral clarity, another subtle form of control. But the loop has a cost. The more often we feed on outrage, the narrower our emotional range becomes. Calm feels boring. Nuance feels weak. peace feels suspicious. Drama becomes the default heartbeat of attention. Breaking free from the loop doesn't mean rejecting drama entirely. It means learning to observe without absorbing. When you notice the next scandal, pause. Ask, what part of me feels safer because this isn't my chaos? That's the doorway out. Awareness converts voyeurism into reflection. The antidote to addictive conflict isn't silence, it's discernment. To see the pattern without needing to join it. To sense the emotional bait and choose curiosity over reaction. Here's a quiet truth. When life finally becomes peaceful, it can feel empty. Not because peace is lacking, but because our nervous system is still tuned to noise. Reclaiming your calm isn't about cutting out the world's drama. It's about teaching your body that serenity isn't the absence of excitement. It's the presence of safety. And that takes practice. Observe your feed. Scroll for 5 minutes and write down every post that carries emotional tension, outrage, gossip, pity, rivalry. How many appeared in just that short span? What emotions did they spark in you? Spot your comfort. When watching someone else's chaos, what part of it feels oddly satisfying? Recognition? Distance? Justice? List 3 moments that gave you that subtle relief. Reclaim your narrative. For the next 24 hours, consume no conflict-based media. Notice the restlessness. What fills the space when there's no external drama to mirror your internal one? Write this sentence and finish it. When there's no drama around me, I tend to let whatever surfaces be your teacher. The storm always leaves silence behind. That's the part most people skip, the sound that follows the spectacle. The hush that lingers after the argument ends, after the notifications fade, after the adrenaline withdraws. But if you listen closely, that silence isn't empty. It's alive. It's the nervous system recalibrating. It's your brain, no longer hunting for tension, learning how to just be again. The truth no one tells you about drama is that it isn't the villain, it's the messenger. It reveals what your attention craves when you're disconnected from yourself. Some people chase gossip because they fear irrelevance. Some people love conflict because it gives them a sense of importance. Some people replay pain because it's the only rhythm they've ever known. But beneath all of it, beneath the moralizing, the hot takes, the dopamine and exhaustion, lies a simple truth. We are creatures built to feel. And when life gets too predictable, our mind will create friction just to remind us that we're still here. Peace is not addictive. Drama is. Because peace demands stillness, and stillness demands intimacy with the self. To sit in calm is to meet everything you've been avoiding. The quiet guilt, the unprocessed grief, the feeling of invisibility you keep drowning in noise. Drama, on the other hand, offers shortcuts. It gives intensity without introspection. It mimics purpose. It's a drug of movement in a world terrified of pause. Think about it. When was the last time you scrolled aimlessly and felt okay being bored? Boredom is the brain's hunger signal for depth, but we rarely let it complete its cycle. Instead, we reach for stimulation, trending topics, arguments. Did you see what happened? That's why silence feels uncomfortable, because we've mistaken stimulation for aliveness. There's another layer to why we love watching other people's chaos: projection. When you're invested in a stranger's downfall, you're not just watching them. You're seeing the shadow parts of you that you haven't made peace with. The parts that crave validation, attention, redemption. When a public figure gets exposed, the schadenfreude isn't just judgment, it's self-defense. You're subconsciously saying, if I can keep my eyes on their mistakes, I don't have to face mine. But awareness transforms this mirror into medicine. Once you notice how often your curiosity hides fear, you can use drama as a compass instead of a cage. Every time you find yourself pulled toward conflict, ask, what emotion is this saving me from feeling in my own life? If you can answer honestly, you've already begun to exit the loop. Here's the paradox. We don't watch drama because we're broken. We watch because we're built for empathy. Every story of betrayal, tension, or reconciliation triggers the same circuits that ancient tribes relied on to survive. By studying social friction, we learned what to avoid. By observing pain, we learned how to heal. That's why your brain doesn't differentiate between fiction and reality in emotional processing. When someone gets humiliated online, the same mirror neurons fire as if you were being rejected. It's not voyeurism. It's ancient training replayed through modern screens. But what once made us wise now makes us weary. Because the volume never lowers. The campfire never dies. There's always another thread, another take, another digital brawl. And so, our nervous systems stay half-lit, never resting, always reacting. The real mastery isn't learning to stop caring. It's learning to care selectively. To direct your empathy with intention instead of impulse. That's emotional sovereignty. The ability to stay open without being consumed. Imagine you're standing in a room that's finally quiet. The drama has passed, the fire burned out, the audience gone home. Now it's just you and your heartbeat. No spectacle, no applause, no outrage. That's where real life begins again. Not in the noise, but in the noticing. Because drama may entertain us, but reflection evolves us. And once you've seen how the cycle works, the outrage, the comfort, the illusion of control, you can't unsee it. You start craving something softer, something honest, a slower conversation, a genuine presence, a friendship that doesn't need performance to feel alive. You begin to realize peace isn't boring, it's sacred. And the real revolution is learning to live without constant reaction. Deep Dive Companion, Journal Reflections. List 3 types of stories, shows, or online conflicts you're drawn to. Next to each, ask, what emotion does this fulfill for me? Safety, superiority, excitement, empathy? Then ask, what emotion would I feel if I stopped engaging with it? When something dramatic happens in your own life, who are you performing for? The people involved or your imagined spectators? What would change if no one was watching? Sit in total silence for 5 minutes. No phone, no music. Notice the first thoughts that appear. Those thoughts are your mind's way of detoxing from external noise. Write them down. They reveal your true threshold for stillness. You made it through the fire, through the noise, the spectacle, the mirror, the calm. Now, take one deep breath. Inhale the quiet. Exhale the crowd. The next time you find yourself in the middle of someone else's story, pause. Ask yourself, am I here to learn or to escape? Because awareness is not withdrawal, it's evolution. And the real maturity isn't to stop feeling, it's to stop feeding the wrong emotions. So watch less to judge and more to understand. Feel less to escape and more to connect. And remember, sometimes the highest form of wisdom is walking away before the fire needs to end.